Namaskar, Mabuhai. Welcome back to Soul Yatra Unfolds with one of the most fascinating subjects you would have ever heard of. It's called medical astrology. Sounds interesting, right? So I just recently made something called Law of Karma, and I'm going to explain how medical astrology works hand in hand with that. So, many years ago, I got interested in astrology, and it's been more than 25 years where I'm more of a self-learned. I wouldn't call myself an astrologer because I'm not a qualified one, but I have been practicing astrology with whatever bits and pieces of knowledge I gained over years. And with that, some triggers came, and it made me curious to see, to check how could astrology help about our health. It's supposed to be holistic. It's supposed to be telling us everything about our life way forward, and that's where this interest came. And obviously, you yourself, one own self, is the best case study. So I started to correlate with my own birth chart. How did it correlate with my health situations? And then I started unfolding or discovering interesting things, and that led me to a deeper study of this. Again, I repeat, I haven't done any study which is like a university facilitated study, but these are more through different gurus whom I keep meeting, and self-study, and a lot of it putting 2 plus 2 together, and understanding how this works. So in astrology, the law of karma is very important because you're born with a reason, and what you will do, there is a free will karma for us to be given what we'll do, but there is a certain set of karma which we've already done, and now we have to, there are unfructified results which we have to get the results now. Let me try to make it simple. So for example, I behaved in a certain fashion, I lived in a certain manner, I had a certain lifestyle in some of my past human life. I did a lot of actions, which is basically karma, but there was not enough time for me to reap the results of those karma, whether they were good or bad. And hence there is a carry forward. Please, I'll share the link. Please see my law of karma, that link of that episode, and you'll understand what I'm trying to say. How does the law of karma, how our karma rolls over for certain number of human lives. So, our soul doesn't die, it transmigrates into a new body, and our subconscious mind carries those coded karmic memories, and what you call as DNA is basically the sanskaras, or the value system, the culture, what we have carried. Now let me not complicate it or confuse you. So when a doctor tells you, you have inherited type 2 diabetes from your maternal side, right? What does it mean? Basically, it means that these are the rewards or the results of the karma, what you have done in some past human life. You could have been 3 generations prior, one of your grandparents, you could be one of your family member who's been reborn, and you have carried those karmic results with you. That's what exactly a DNA defined in a medical world, and that's what in the world of medical astrology, we say that every result in this life which is not controlled by you, or you feel that I didn't deserve it, is basically the result of the karma what you carried over. In our current human life, usually I have a free will karma which I can practice to do good or bad with my own cognitive intelligence and my own intellect. But there are certain deeds I've already done, and I have to bear the result of that. So sometimes in this life you realize that you got exactly what you did. Like for example, you studied and you knew I would get 80% and you got 80%. That means your current karma was 100% active. But very often there are times when you put in so much of effort, whether it is school, college, work, relationship, but you don't get, you are disappointed. And that is when the question comes, I didn't deserve it, but why did this happen to me? But that's where medical astrology comes, that we deserved it just because we didn't remember it. Now, depending on the magnitude of the actions what I must have done, depends the result. So every reward in my current human life, which I know that I don't deserve it, but I got it, we attribute it to luck, my good luck. That good luck is my credit balance of my karma. All my good deeds, I got it. The punishments are given to us in forms of a compromised relationship, challenging situations in life, wealth, poverty, it could be many. And then if further to it, it is then now added on by diseases. So we must remember that every disease what we have or what we go through, whether a mild, small or a major one, is a result of some of my karma which I have done in some human life. It may not sound very good to hear, because sometimes it can be painful that was I so bad? How could I go through all this? But that's the truth. The best is to accept it. So now let's come to how we decode it when we call it medical astrology. So in an astrology chart, there are specific houses. So for example, 6th house, 8th house and 12th house are specifically seen for diseases. Now they have different significances. Before that, I also want to give a disclaimer that while the astrology chart has only 12 houses, but it's not so simple to interpret everything just by looking at one house and seeing that, I have moon there and I have this and this is how it is. There are many parameters to that. It's a very detailed study where what's the nakshatra, what's the planet, which planet is aspecting it, what is your ascendant. It's complex. Imagine, each human being is different, right? So you could not, if it was so simple, then life would have been very simple. So it isn't that simple. It is very and it is very specific to each individual. Each individual is born, according to Ayurveda, with doshas. Doshas means defect. Dosh means defect. So if you now bring Ayurveda into this, because Ayurveda, astrology, medical astrology, they all go hand in hand. If you are born with a certain dosh, then Ayurveda treats you accordingly. And what is dosh? So there are 3 kinds of dosh. They are called Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So basically, Vata means air, Pitta means acid or fire, and Kapha means mucus, cold, saliva. What is our body made up of? Our body is made up of Panch Bhut, which is the 5 elements of this world, which is Akash or space, ether. Then we've got fire, we've got water, we've got air, and we've got the material body, which is called as the earth element. So that's what we are made. This is called Panch Bhut. We are 5 elements which the cosmos is made up of and we are made up of. Now, space can't really have a defect, correct? It could be large, it could be small. So a space between your ears could be big or small, but it cannot be said it's right or wrong, correct? The body what we have is, there's nothing like right or wrong. Somebody could be stout, somebody could be tall, but the cellular composition is the same. Where does the defect fall in? The defect fall in is in the composition of Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Now these dosh, the word dosh means defect. You are born with a certain defect based on your karmic backlog. If you did a certain act, so for example, if you were a warrior and if you fought for the country, or at that time, in that process, you would have to probably, fight people, kill someone or hurt someone physical. They were enemies, maybe they were not doing the right thing. But the fact is that you did something which was also against nature, against law. So when you will be born in some human life, there will be a defect in your physical body in some form. this can be decoded from your Navamsa chart, or the chart where you can see what was your past life karmic debt, what you are carrying over. Similarly, now the magnitude of the defect or the defect what we are born depends on the nature of the activity what you did. But if you are a man who were very physically strong, or a woman who was physically strong, you hurt someone or you hit someone for a wrong reason, you bullied someone, you tried to cheat someone and you hurt, or you pushed somebody off the cliff. So you'll realize that when you are born in this, you could be susceptible to accidents, you could go through a similar pain or hurt in this human life in some activity. And that is where, when you read charts, people will say, oh, you have Mangal dosh, Mars is defective, so you should be careful of vehicles, or you could have an accident. So if you misused vehicle, if you hurt someone, you will undergo the same thing. Similarly, if in your chart one can read that how were the planets placed in your Navamsa chart. And let me just quickly explain. So when we are born in an astrology, there is a main chart which is your future and what your current, but along with that there is a D9 or Navamsa chart, which basically usually people use it at the time of marriage, but it is basically the Navamsa chart is your allocated karma, the Prarabdha, what you have come with, what unfructified results you have come here to now get the results of it. It is not always bad, or it is not always good. It's a mix of the deeds what you've done. So it is important to read that Navamsa chart. So for example, Venus primarily as a planet is responsible for diabetes or sugar. Along with that, Jupiter's role also comes to play a little bit, and Moon, but primarily Venus. Venus deals with your adrenal glands and your kidney. Now, how if one sees, a good astrologer or a medical astrologer can see that if the Venus planet is compromised both in your Lagna chart and your Navamsa, it is compromised in a particular house aspected by certain, which planet, you can actually decode that you will end up having sugar over a certain age. And why would you do that? Because then one can read that what is it that you misused. It has to do with women energy. So whatever kind of a person or soul you were, did you hurt someone in a relationship, or did you not take care of a sister or somebody in your family, or somebody into any kind of relationship? To what extent you hurt, or how did you defy norms, etc., will decide the magnitude of the problem. Usually it is seen type 2 sugar diabetes is always inherited. Diabetes is, in those cases, we see a significantly compromised Venus. So it becomes important now that while you have to be treated with insulin, you have to be treated with a different diet, but can it really fix? It cannot, because there are set of actions you've done for which you are punished and you are born with the dosha. So how do you fix that? So along with taking medicines, this is where some of these prescriptions which come into place. For example, one, usually you are told you should pray to a certain deity or a certain goddess or god depending on your religion. You should give donations, you should do particular work. There are different prescriptions. But what is important to identify, what particular area is your karmic debt. So you will, if it is further looked into, or I would say when we explore more, then we find out, like sometimes when I check, I find out that yes, there is somebody in office, a female counterpart or a colleague or somebody who just doesn't seem to like you, or you just seem to not get along with that. Or somebody at home, you have a relation, maybe a sister or a sister-in-law or somebody who just doesn't understand you, and you end up having fights, or just things don't work out. That's where you identify that these are those unfulfilled souls with whom your relationship owe to them, not by any medicine, but by your deeds. So a guidance at that time is given that don't sometimes surrender, sometimes listen to the other person as much as you don't like. That person has come in with a karmic coding, with a memory of you which they have bad memory. So how do you fix that? So you begin to become humble. You increase your tenacity, you increase your resilience, and you begin to mend your relationship with them. You will be surprised that the moment you begin to do that, even if you don't take insulin, your sugar levels will get better. This might sound very, very dramatic, but you can absolutely try this. This is one example I gave. For example, if Jupiter is normally, if you've seen, is compromised, then we see maximum diseases occurring out of that would be got to do with thyroid, cholesterol, sugar, liver, everything related with that. Now, what does Jupiter signify? Jupiter signifies elders. It signifies priestly people. It signifies teachers, mentor-like people around you. Jupiter is administrative. It takes care of wealth. So it manages wealth. Jupiter has got to do with administration. So if I would notice in a birth chart, in the Navamsa chart especially, that Jupiter is debilitated, or it is with Venus, or it has got or it is with Rahu, the dragon's head, you immediately know that in some past human life, there is a karmic backlog of what? Either you have misused wealth, or you cheated somebody of wealth, especially an elderly person, an uncle, or you did not respect people who were elder to you, or people who were more like mentors, guides, a whole bunch of things. There are many aspects to it. Then one can predict that you will be heading for one of these challenges in future. Now it all depends. It depends which house the Jupiter is, who's aspecting it. So again, I repeat, it's a very complex study. It is very specific to chart and it is individual. But why wait to be 35, 40 to discover that you've got cholesterol on the borderline, you've got liver calcification, you have a digestion issue, you're putting on weight, your obesity. This can actually be seen at a much earlier age. And then what can you do? You know that you have come with a dosh where you will result with certain diseases. You cannot start taking medicines, right, for cholesterol even when you don't have cholesterol. So what is your medicine here? Your medicine here is your action, your deed. So one then starts identifying which are the areas I need to then change myself, which are the relationships I need to focus on, which are the people I feel that I owe them, not from this human life, from many other human life, and I start mending or paying back, mitigating my karma through my actions now, so that the impact of these diseases will be much lesser. The disease will still come, let me tell you, but by doing all these actions, the magnitude of that can be minuscule. It can be very, very little. I'll share an example with my personal experience or my own chart. So when I grew up, I somehow had a kind of a rebel feeling, especially when I saw pundits or priests. I just assumed that all of them were not good. They were not very knowledgeable. They were just, trying to make money. And I wouldn't like to bow down to them. I would just avoid them. But I have a little bit of, not a lot, but a compromised guru. Jupiter, what does it mean? That it's a carryover karma I was carrying. Why did I feel like that? Because I have had entangled in probably relationship or practices which didn't do good to either me and to both. Now, if I continue to feel like this, I'm only entangling into more negative karma, which I realized much later. And then what did I start doing? Initially, it started by not doing it wholeheartedly, but doing because I was scared and I should do it. I started to bow down. I started to fold my hands and just thank, anyone whom I met who thought was a priest. And the difference what I began to see, that the moment I did that, that person felt very, respected. And there was an automatic a reaction of blessing me, right? The moment you're subservient and you just say thank you, the other person tends to bless you. Then I started listening to all, I would talk to them. And initially when I would just undermine and just not listen, I started listening and I started realizing that there was always some goodness I could pick up from whatever they said. He may not be perfect, he may not be to the level of a guru I would look upon to, but there was still value I could get out from them. And over a period of time, it helped me develop so much of resilience, tenacity, and gradually it made me a better human being. And I still had cholesterol issues with my liver, but I have been able to bring it down to a significant level. And I attribute it a lot not to the medicines I take, because I don't take any medicine, just to let you know, but because of these practices what I did. Of course, along with that, your dietary, your preventive diet. So I changed my lifestyle diet more on Ayurveda based, etc. And I have seen the success of it. There are knee pains which I used to have, leg pains. I'm not getting more details about myself, but I can share so many examples just with my own experiences, how I was able to minimize the impact of bad health with the help of looking into a birth chart with a lens of a medical astrology. Similarly, each planet, what you see in every house, they signify a whole bunch of things. So when you go to a typical astrologer, he'll just tell you that, your Saturn is with this, your moon is with, Mercury, and, it could result into this. But to look a little more deeper into that why is my moon with my Mercury like this, right? That's the answer you get from your Navamsa chart, and you understand that every action, what is happening with me, good or bad, is a result of what I have done in some past human life. So I have been given a chance to now fix it, and I should make the most of it. That is where I'm trying to inspire you to look into medical astrology from that perspective. In the beginning, I mentioned that we've got 3 houses in astrology, which we look specifically for diseases. So one is the 6th house, which is considered to be the primary indicator of health, depending on which the planet's residing there or the aspect it has, it signifies the concerns. 8th house is a little mystical house. It represents sudden or serious health issues, your longevity, and surgeries, and very unprecedented or sudden events in your life. 12th house is linked to usually hospitalization, chronic diseases, continuous visits to hospitals, mental health, and long-term recovery. This is from a very basic view of that. Each planets, they have been associated with different parts of the body and nature of sicknesses. Suns typically represents health, your heart, vitality, your overall energy, the acid inside your body, your hair, a whole bunch of things. Again, I'm saying something very little. There's a whole chart which will tell you about every minuscule part of your body. Moon is associated with Kapha, your emotional state of mind, the fluid balance in your body, your digestion, because Kapha is responsible for your digestion as well. And moon has got a lot to do with your mental and emotional state of mind, because mental health is another aspect, right? So typically moon with Ketu, the dragon's tail, has a very profound impact, on different aspects of life, including health. Mars indicates accidents, surgeries, inflammation, acid, your immune system. So red blood cells are signified by Mars. Mercury is related to your nervous system, your communication, our cognitive function, everything to do with your nervous system, your speech, your communication, and I forgot to say, each house has parts of the body which tell. So for example, 2nd house and a compromised Mercury can indicate very early years about your stammering or absent-mindedness, depending on with which planet it is. So we would normally say that we would start at a very early age, recommending maybe you should have more Tulsi, because Tulsi has Mercury. So these kind of organic prescriptions can be given from a very early age. Jupiter, as I had mentioned, it represents our overall health, our liver function, our digestion, thyroid, pancreas. Pancreas are both by Jupiter as well as Venus also contributes to that. Bile, gallbladder, etc. A whole bunch of other things, all the fat in our body. Venus is associated with the reproductive system, health, beauty, skin, hair, adrenal glands, as I mentioned, kidney, everything to do with kidney, are all genital organs. It's all got to do with Venus. Saturn indicates chronic conditions, joint pains, bone marrow, limitations, bones, all bones, the joints of our bones. When in conjunction with Rahu, it can be indicative about any diseases like cancer, etc. Now coming to these two shadow planets, which are called the dragon's head Rahu and dragon's tail Ketu. So Rahu's problems are related to brain disorder, liver, so it adds to it. So remember, Rahu alone usually is not very significant with his result. Whichever house it is or whichever planet it conjuncts with, then it actually decides how is it going to function. Things like smallpox, worms in the stomach, injuries falling from the height, high pain, toxic problems, physical pain, leprosy, again cancer, fever, brain disorder, very, very mass-oriented diseases or common diseases which last very long. Dragon's tail, Ketu-borne diseases are rheumatism, any kind of hemorrhages, skin diseases, weakness, stagnancy, injury in the body, wound allergy, skin diseases, sudden illness, dog bites, spinal problem, joint pains, ear issues, ear liquid issues, hernia, and any kind of genital diseases. Whatever I've said is our very tip of the iceberg. It's a very big field of, I would say, medical science, and a very interesting one, and it is very holistic. I always tell people, you could be taking a tablet for your heart every day. You could be taking many more medicines, but if you continue to harness pain, hurt, grief, and not forgive people, and do not manage your relationships, your solar plex, your heart plexus or your anahat chakra is not going to function. You will still have your heart problems, you will still have your heart related diseases. It cannot fix only with medicines. So I always say that all your diseases, all your medicines will only work when we actually navigate down to the true cause, which is based on the law of karma. What karma have I done and come? What has caused me to be born like this with these conditions, and then how do I fix it? I think this is a very interesting topic. I will make another one where I'll share how in our lifetime we can also see when do these diseases occur, so we can actually know that which part of the dasha period when I go through, I will end up having this. There are times, right, we suddenly get inflammation and then it fixes after a certain time. We may be taking medicine, but it becomes very profound at a certain time and it fixes. These all can be seen through this medical astrology, that when you will encounter, so how could you be interesting episodes on this related topics. Thank you, and as always, like, subscribe and share.